Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So today we are going to discuss about some new topic in the SQL for the data science, right? So the topic that I'm going to follow up today are the SQL constraints. So constraints, okay? So this is the topic for today that we're going to go ahead with, and that's the SQL constraints. We are going to see that what are the topic that lies TRAI, okay, that is TRAIN. Here one T I had missed out, now it's okay. Right, so we are going to see that what are the topics that come under this particular section, and even we are going to do out and put on some different topics here, right? So what I would do here is that I would simply take out a new color so as I could begin with the writing of the rules. Okay. So yeah, here goes that. First of all, we'll be discussing that. What are the constraints? Okay. Right here. Okay. So I could see that constraints are the rules that constraints are the rules that we apply on the type of data that we apply on the type of data in our table in our table. So constraints are basically the rules that we apply on the type of data in a table. Let's say I'm working with some data which is stored in our table. Right, so what are the rules that I'm going to apply, and what are the things that I'm going to apply onto that particular data which is stored in a table? That is completely known as constraints. Right, hope I am very much clear with that particular thing. Now, and what is this? Okay, that is fine. Now, why we just use it out? So that is, I would mention out that is we can specify. Let me now just go out down here. Okay, constraints are the rules that we apply on the type of data in a table. That is, we can specify the limit on the type of data that can be stored in a particular column in a table that can be stored in a particular column in a table using constraints. It put on like this, right? So yeah, this is regarding first of all that constraints, that what are these and what are they useful. Let me quickly again give you a revision of that. So constraints are the rules that we apply on the type of data in a table. That is, we can specify the limit on the type of data that can be stored in a particular column in a table using the constraints, right? Hope I am very much clear with this particular thing. Now, what are the available constraints that we have here in the SQL? So I would just put on the heading for that the available constraints are, okay, what are the available constraints? So that are, first one I am having here as the not null. Right, so this is very first available constraint that we have here in the SQL. So that's the not null. What is this used for? So let me go ahead and put on all of those things. So this constraint tells that we cannot store. This particular constraint tells that we cannot store a null value in a column. This is the very first thing that this particular constraint tells. So this constraint tells us that we cannot store a null value in a column, right? Next, in a column, that is, if a column, let me just come down, get out some space for writing, right? That is, if a column, here goes the column, right? That is, if a column is specified as not null. That is, if a column is specified as not null, then we will not be able to store null in this particular column. In this, I will just simply write out column here, in this column any more. So what is this not null constraint helps us? So this particular constraint is that we cannot store a null value in a column. It means that if a column is specified as not null, then we will not be able to store null into this particular column anymore. Okay. So this is first of all the very first constraint that we have out here, and which is not null. Right. Let me come down to a new line and let me go ahead with the second one for now. Okay, so the second one I am having here is unique. That's the unique. Okay, second one we are having here as unique. So now what is this particular constraint and what is this particular used for? So I would mention out that this constraint, so this constraint tells, okay, one second, this constraint I will just not go ahead with like this. I would write out that this constraint when specified, so this constraint when specified with a column, tells that all the values in the column, like all the values which we are having in the column must be actually unique. Unique means that each of the values shall differ from all the values whichever I stored here, right? So this particular constraint when specified with a column tells us all the values in the column must be unique. Okay, and that is must be unique. That is the values in any row, that is the values in any row of a column, like what are the values you are having in the row or in any of the rows of a column, must not be that action shall not out be repeated. Must not be, let me just go down here, must not be repeated. Right, so the constraint when specified with a column tells that all the values in the column must be unique. That is, the values in any row of a column must not be repeated out. It means, as I mentioned out, that all the values shall be dissimilar to each other. Fine, this is what the unique constraint actually means out here. Then the third number I would be having here, the number 3, and that's the primary key. So primary, and here goes the key, primary key. Okay, primary key. So a primary key, like this, right? So a primary key is a field. Right, yes. So the primary key is a field which can uniquely. So a primary key is a field which can uniquely identify each row. Which can uniquely identify each row in a table. Right, in a table it can actually uniquely identify each row, and the constraint is used and the constraint is used to specify a field in a table as primary key. So the primary key constraint is that it is a field which can uniquely identify each row in a table, right? And this particular constraint is used to specify out a field in a table as a primary key. So like let's say you are having out a data and that data is stored in a form of a table. So what is this primary key constraint used for? So this would actually help you out to specify out a field in a table, and that particular field in the table would be known as the primary key, right? So hope I am very much clear with the primary key to you. Let me just go above and go ahead with all the SQL constraints which we had seen till now. So first of all, we had seen about what are the constraints. So it is defined as these are the rules that we apply onto the type of data in a table. This is we can specify the limit on the type of data that can be stored in a particular column in a table using out the constraints. So it is somewhat you can specify that what type of data will be stored in a table, and that all things are completely done using the constraints, right? Now next what I'm having that what are the available constraints which we are having. So the very first one is the not null. Okay, so what is this particular constraint used for? So this tells that we cannot store out a null value in a column. Okay, it means that we cannot store a null value in a column. That is, if a column is specified as not null, then we will not be able to store null in this column anymore, right? Next, we are having out the unique constraint. So this particular constraint, whenever specified with a column, this tells that all the values in a column must be unique, right? As the term as will suggest out, that all the values which you are having that shall be dissimilar to each other, right? Then we have the primary key. So a primary key is a field which can uniquely identify out each row in a table, right? Whenever we just talk about uniquely identifying the row in a table, and this is the primary key which helps us to do so, right? So hope I made all of these things very much clear regarding all the three constraints which I have discussed. We are left with some more as well here. So that I'll be discussing up in the next video. So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and take care.